I've always had a real appreciation for the vintage erotica style images from the late 1800s and early 1900s. You may have seen some images and BTS videos in this style from me before, but this is going to be a tutorial on how you go about creating that style of image. So this is a combination of footage from a workshop I just ran yesterday on shooting vintage nudes, as well as some behind the scenes from other shoots. So the models for the workshop were Lorelei Jones and Ginger Tonic, both girls that I've worked with before on previous workshops and shoots. So I thought I'd just explain the sets that are used in the workshop. So this particular set is just missing some of the little accessories that Lorelei had for the workshop, being a gramophone and a few other little bits and pieces. But essentially the backdrop and the lighting is exactly what we used in the workshop yesterday. So when I did the test shoot with Lorelei for this workshop, we used this old grey background that I've got here, but we didn't have the material hanging in front of it. This time around, I really wanted to add a little bit more texture because the grey background, while it does have some mottling to it, it goes pretty dark in the final edits. So I just found this sort of netting material and we've hung it in a couple of ways. So we've got a couple of little droops there, which works out really nicely. So lighting me at the moment and what we used in the workshop, as you can see, 2 strip boxes either side, and also the Elinchrom Light Motive 190cm indirect. So this is obviously a very soft light, and that is in direct opposition to what they would have used to create those images back in the day. Back then there was no such thing as a softbox, so they were using hard light. And as you can see in this footage from the test shoot I did with Lorelei, we did use a Fresnel type LED light, which is a lot harder. But I thought for the workshop, it was going to be a lot easier to use a soft light, and that way the models could move around in all sorts of poses and not have to worry too much about where the light was falling. So this is the second set that we used in the workshop. Essentially what it's made up of is a canvas drop sheet, which I got from Bunnings. And then we've just layered different types of material on top of that and pinned it in different areas. So we can create a lot of texture in the background. So this looks terrible in color, but in black and white, it creates some really nice different textures and different tones of gray. Obviously, as our posing prop, I've got my trusty Chase Lounge, which fits the era. And in terms of lighting, I'm using the 3 LED panels from Lupo, the 2 super panels, the main one lighting me here at the moment, which is the face light, has got the softbox and grid attached. And then boomed above at a lower power is another super panel, again with a softbox but without the grid. So that's creating some nice downlight across the background, creating some good texture, and also giving us some top light on our subject when they're lying on the lounge. And behind me here is another LED panel from Lupo. This is the full color 30, using it in color temperature mode. So that's set to a color temperature of 5,000 degrees Kelvin to match these other Lupo lights. And that is basically just giving a little bit of separation light, a little bit of hair light when we're doing the standing poses here. And the last bit was just to put some material down on the floor, just to darken the white floor on the cyc. So we can basically crop out the white cyc if we're doing a full shot, which is showing the bottom of the chase. And that is just going to go fairly dark. And for the third and final set, this is the most simple set. And it's basically just using my painted canvas background, which I made a couple of years ago now. So it's a lighter tone background. So it's a little bit more high key than the other setups. And in terms of props, we've got this metal tub, which is quite rather vintage. I think it actually came from France. And I've also got this vase with these dead sticks and dried plants here, which works in really nicely with the tone of the background. And in terms of lighting, I'm using the Aputure 120D with the light dome and grid attached. So that is lighting the subject as well as the background. And then I've got another Lupo full color 30, again in CTT mode, set to 5,000 degrees Kelvin. And that is, again, just sort of providing that little bit of kicker light just a bit of separation light here. And just on the floor, we've got some material, again, lighter tone, just to tie the whole thing together. So in terms of the lighting overall with the 3 sets, there's nothing too special that we're using to create these images in this vintage style. It's really not that much different to what I would use for any other style of portrait or nude shoot. So what it really comes down to is the styling of the sets, the styling of the models and what they're wearing, and then finally it's the post-processing. So here's some of the test footage I did with the shoots with Lorelei before we did the workshop, and also some behind the scenes of the workshop with Lorelei and Ginger.